6 hours after the first human dropship had touched down, Zareth stood in what had been the colony's central plaza, watching the impossible unfold around her. Human medical teams moved efficiently through the crowds of injured Kalani, their strange equipment working seeming miracles on wounds that should have been fatal. Soldiers in dirt-stained armor directed supply drops with the same casual competence they had shown while destroying the most feared raider fleet in the galaxy. "Representative Zareth?" A voice behind her spoke in accented but fluent Kalani. She turned to see Colonel Santos approaching, having removed her helmet to reveal a scarred but kind face. "I wanted to check on you personally before we finish up here." "Finish up?" Zareth struggled to understand. "But the medical teams, the reconstruction efforts, will be handled by our engineering corps and civilian aid units. They're already en route." Santos gestured toward the sky where more human ships were descending through the atmosphere. These ones larger and clearly built for humanitarian purposes rather than warfare. "My strike force's job was just to clear out the pirates and secure the area. The real work starts now." Zareth stared at the human colonel, trying to process what she was hearing. "You came 47 light years in 3 days to save people you've never met, fought off the Vorthak like they were children, and now you're staying to help rebuild?" "Of course we are." Santos looked genuinely confused by the question. "What did you think we were going to do? Blow things up and leave?" "That's what most species would do," Zareth admitted quietly. "The Galactic Council talks much about civilization and cooperation. But when the Vorthak come calling, everyone has excuses. Training exercises, jurisdictional concerns, political complications." Santos's expression hardened. "The Galactic Council abandoned you. It wasn't a question." Zareth nodded slowly. "Our distress calls were acknowledged but not answered. We were expendable." "Well, they're about to learn something about human politics," Santos said grimly. "Admiral Chen is having a very direct conversation with the council leadership right now. Apparently, she's not impressed with their excuses." Before Zareth could ask what that meant, her communication device chimed with an incoming priority message. The holographic display showed the familiar chamber of the Galactic Council, but the usual composed dignity of the session was nowhere to be seen. Council members from dozens of species sat in obvious discomfort, while a human woman in Admiral's uniform stood at the central podium, her voice carrying clearly across the vast chamber. 47 light-years in 72 hours because someone sent out a distress call, Admiral Chen was saying, her tone making it clear that she was furious and not bothering to hide it. 200,000 civilians were under attack by raiders, and not one of you moved to help. "Not one." "Admiral," interrupted the Centauri representative, "you must understand the complexities involved. The Vorthak operate outside established jurisdictions, and military intervention requires extensive planning." "Bullshit." The human admiral's response was flat and immediate. "My staff pulled up the records. The Altarian Third Fleet was 6 hours away and chose to continue their training exercises. The Centauri Defense Force had 3 cruiser squadrons in the next system over and decided they lacked authority. The Rigel Coalition actually voted to table discussion of the crisis until their next quarterly meeting." The assembled representatives shifted uncomfortably. Zareth had never seen council members look so ashamed, but Admiral Chen was far from finished. "Earth may be the newest member of this council, but we're apparently the only one that remembers what it means to answer a distress call. While you were filing paperwork and holding committee meetings, my people crossed half the galaxy because someone needed help, because that's what you do when people are dying." The human response was admirable. The council prime minister began diplomatically. "But surely you understand." "No, I don't understand." Chen's voice cut through the chamber like a blade. "I don't understand how a civilization that claims to value life can watch genocide unfold and do nothing. I don't understand how species that have been spacefaring for millennia can be so paralyzed by their own bureaucracy that they let children die rather than risk political complications." Colonel Santos noticed Zareth's expression and followed her gaze to the display. "Ah. The Admiral's making her feelings known. I see." She's confronting the entire Galactic Council, Zarath whispered. Alone. No, not alone. She's speaking for all of humanity. Santos's voice carried a pride that was somehow both fierce and humble. We discussed this on the way here. Earth's position is simple. We didn't join the Galactic Council to play politics while people suffer. We joined to make things better. On the display, Admiral Chen continued her assault on the Council's collective conscience. Let me be very clear about something. Humanity comes from a world that tried to kill us every single day for millions of years. We learned to cooperate or die, to help each other or face extinction. We didn't survive by forming committees when our neighbors were in trouble. Admiral, the Prime Minister tried again. While your passion is understandable. My passion? Chen laughed. But there was no humor in it. Minister, what you call passion, we call basic decency. When someone calls for help, you help them. When innocents are threatened, you protect them. When bullies attack the weak, you fight back. These aren't complicated moral positions. Zarath found herself nodding along with the human admiral's words. Around her, other Kalani survivors had gathered to watch the unprecedented confrontation, their expressions shifting from shock to something that looked like hope. Furthermore, Chen continued. Humanity is formally proposing the establishment of a rapid response protocol. Any distress call from any world will be answered within 72 hours by available forces. No committees, no jurisdictional debates, no political considerations. Someone calls for help, someone comes running. Such a protocol would require massive military expenditures, objected the Rigel representative. The logistics alone would be handled by Earth, Chen said simply. We'll station ships throughout Council space, ready to deploy at a moment's notice. We'll train rapid response teams, maintain humanitarian supplies, and coordinate rescue operations. All we ask from the Council is that you don't interfere when we're trying to save lives. The chamber fell silent. Zarath realized she was holding her breath, waiting for the response that would determine the future of galactic civilization. You would do this? Asked the Prime Minister quietly. Take on such a burden for species that aren't your own? Minister, Admiral Chen replied. We already did it. The first expeditionary strike force deployed before we even asked permission. My Marines fought and bled for people they'd never met because it was the right thing to do. That's not a burden. It's an honor. As the transmission ended, Zarath turned to Colonel Santos with tears in her eyes. Why? Why would you do so much for strangers? Santos was quiet for a long moment, watching her medics work to save Kalani children. You know what we call Earth, Representative? We call it a death world. Everything there tried to kill us. The weather, the animals, the diseases, the planet itself. We survived because we learned that we're stronger together than apart, that your pain matters as much as mine, that no one fights alone. She gestured toward her soldiers, who were helping elderly Kalani navigate through the rubble of their destroyed homes. These Marines didn't cross the galaxy for glory or territory or political advantage. They came because someone sent out a distress call. And on Earth, you answer distress calls. Period. But the cost, the risk, the distance. Representative, Santos said gently. When humans hear someone crying for help, we don't calculate costs. We just ask how fast we can get there. As more human ships continued to descend from orbit, bringing engineers, doctors, teachers, and supplies, Zarath finally understood what had happened to Refuge 7. They hadn't been saved by a military force or a political alliance. They had been saved by a species that had learned to make family out of strangers, that treated the suffering of others as their own responsibility. The galaxy was about to discover what humanity meant when they said no one fights alone. And the pirates who had terrorized the outer colonies for decades were about to learn why even the worst monsters in the universe should fear a species from a death world that considered protecting others to be their highest calling.